Hey guys, what's going on? It's your boy Pito. I'm here with a new video coming at you. Today, we're going to be talking about white and the problems that white has, not only as a deck, but as a color and all. And I truly think white's biggest problem can be summed up in one word, and that's consistency. So on the screen, you'll be seeing it's the deck I'm working on. This is on my free-to-play run, working with the cards I have. I basically I just logged in today for the first time on this account in a while, so I got a bunch of packs, I got a bunch of free stuff. So I'm just dropping it all here. What you see is basically what I've kind of come up with, and I'm constantly working on it. But we can talk about this deck once I actually get better acquainted with it and get better with it. But this is what it's got. It's just Android, but with a couple changes. I basically just threw in, a small mask engine. I think this is the bare minimum you need is, 3 items. You don't even need 3 items, really. You can get away with like one or two. Arise, this 1-drop who's stupid good, Marine, and then your big 7-drop. That's like the bare minimum this deck needs for mask. But we're not here about this. We're here to talk about white as a whole. And a big problem with white, like I said, is consistency. So the big problem I have with this deck is, I don't draw enough. I'm not searching enough. I'm not getting enough. When you look at like the best decks in the game, they constantly are replacing themselves. They'll have card advantage. White really doesn't have that a lot. And when you draw, you draw stuff that you don't really need. I'm gonna count how many draw cards I have in here, or search quote unquote cards. So this guy thins the deck, so we'll count that. You have maintenance, which is just to cycle a card for 1 mana because you play the good one with that card, and then you have automated assembly. Not a lot of people like it, and then I just threw in a Pandora because I have one, and kind of the whole point of the deck is the steed, but I don't really draw that often, so that kind of sucks. Other than that, white's other forms of draw and search, like their major forms of drawing and searching, are going to be in the androids, and it's going to be the 3-drop android, Audrey, but she requires you to chain a white card. Other than that, your only other one is the 6-drop legend, and that's the other Audrey who draws for, your forces. But let's go back and look at like decks that are really popular right now and have been. So this, like I said, I haven't touched this account in a while, so we're just going to go over some older decks. So Red BS, it's obviously been nerfed to hell and back. It looks nothing like this, but hey, we're talking about, you got a search card here, you got a search card here, got a search card here, got a search card here, all these guys can be pulled from the deck. This guy's going to search your main combo pieces, and they're all low mana. All the searchers are low mana, and they replace themselves. This guy's going to generate a lot of draw power. Let's go look at purple skeleton. This deck is still actually kind of relevant. You have this guy who's constantly bringing stuff back, filling back up your hand. You have draw power on pirates, draw power, adding cards to hand, coming back to your hand, adding cards to hand, summoning minions, and then the epic guy who also does the same thing, adds cards to hand. These are all decks that have a lot of like searching your major combo pieces or thinning your deck and getting rid of the combo pieces you don't need. White doesn't really have that. Yellow, perfect example. Here's a really bad yellow mid-range deck that I was working on for a long time. But like, she looks at the top 3 of your deck and adds one. She's gonna add a card. Sorry, Suli just adds a card. Map Rat, searching whatever pieces you have. That again, this is not a great card. It has cards like Assault Dive. It has cards that summon from especially with the 2-drop there's a bunch of draw power. There's a bunch of summoning from the deck, looking at the top cards of your deck and adding them. Yellow has a lot of that. Green, green. This is an old green combo deck, but green has, in my opinion, one of the most underrated cards in this game, which is Jack the Green Wizard. Because not only is he going to search one of your base minions, he searches all your big minions. He can search Rita. He can search the Mask 9-drop. So that's why white really heavily leans on Alex. So let's look at the Zenozard builds of green and blue, which aren't the real good builds, but like we'll even look at those and like, look, you're searching your big guys with Jack. You're searching Rita, you're searching your 9-drop. It has lots of ramp, so it can ramp up real well. So if you do draw your big guys, oh well, who cares? It's going to generate its own cards. This is all consistent. Green has never been the most consistent either. Is another one of the decks that really struggles with consistency a lot like white does, but not as much because most of its combo pieces it can be added to the hand from the deck. You don't need to draw into them, unlike white, where you need to draw into your cards. And the deck just doesn't have enough good draw cards, you know. It needs to be like yellow, where it adds like draw to basically every card. Here's a look at the Zenozard build for blue. Even blue, like its best card is a base minion in this deck. You're playing this draw card because you're going to play a lot of mass cards. Your cards search each other. It ramps real well. It basically is like, here's blue, but let's take blue and mix it with green, and you have your best deck in the game right now is the blue mask. And this isn't even like the right build for it. The reason why white isn't as good as, say, the most comparable game that you can compare white to would be probably blue white control in like blue in Magic. They're both really control heavy colors, and white just doesn't have the draw power that those kind of decks in that game. And the other one is, it doesn't have the early game stall that you need to get to your combo pieces. You're blowing all of your cards so early on and just trying to survive that by the time you're in the late game, if you haven't drawn something like automated assembly to refill your hand, you're just gonna lose. Or your opponent, especially against really aggressive decks like blue, once it gets up there. And I think white mask has the ability to be really, really, really good. I think the big problem, it has a couple problems, but I think it can be easily solved. I think some of the solutions to make white like really top tier would be to add a base minion that has removal spells or draw power. So like this is a great card. Andrew, the Sphere Wizard, is a good card because he's going to increase the health of your forces. He's gonna reduce the damage to your forces by 1, and then need a removal spell. If his removal spell was Flash, he would be a lot better card, and this deck would be in a lot better position. I think adding a base minion that adds some form of draw power, like good, decent draw power, would really throw this deck over the top. Like, imagine if there was an invoker that added, some form of draw power and flash removal in one card. It wouldn't be broken. It would really help this deck out, especially in the mid game, which is where this deck's really going to struggle, because in the early game, every deck's just setting up. So you're not really worried about the early game. It's when you're around the 4 to 5. Other than that, I think white really needs better ramp too. Like if you want to play this kind of slow, top heavy, I'm gonna summon Big Boss Minion and kill Big Boss Minion and win with Big Boss Minion style, and then control the board up to that point. You need to be able to ramp, and white's really only form of ramp right now is Alex, the legendary 4-drop. So this is like white's primary form of ramp, which is just abysmal when you look at something like blue that's going to abuse movement and allow you to double up. Or when you look at something like green that just naturally ramps, and that's the reason why those two decks are really outpacing white right now and why white mask is kind of the worst of them all. Also, a deck like this has really good ability to come back. It's just, and I think a big one is that you're kind of forced to play Chiron in this deck, and I really think that if you can play something like the purple or the white force, like Ouroboros or Pegasus, this deck would be a lot better. But it's not. So maybe I'll give that a shot. Maybe I'll throw the white one in here. Maybe, you know, it's go with a more minion build using a Jin and just keeping my minions up. But the card that really sets white out of being the best is you got that big 9-drop, right? He's supposed to be your boss monster. He's supposed to stay on the field. He's supposed to just control the game for you. But if you go over to Blues Legendaries, there's a specific card that kind of just ends it. And I think it's genuinely like one of the most broken cards ever printed, and that's the Legendary Mask Orlean, the Ruler of Waves, the 8-drop. The 8-drop. Because when he's morphed into, and they morph into him really easily because the deck really ramps really easily, is it destroys all the minions with the highest cost. And then it enters an active state. And then he can keep entering the active state. And that is kind of crazy for me because when you're playing your white deck and you have when you're playing your white deck and you have your big boss monster out on the field and you have your big boss mask white monster on the field, Nemesis, yeah, he can't be targeted for your opponent's card effects. That's fantastic. He enters whenever one of your other minions for the battle, another minion, this minion enters active state. That's great. That's very controlling. Deal the damage to your opponent's life whenever you win a battle on your turn, and he gives resurge to all your creatures. The issue with this deck is this card, and it's because it can be removed by that 8 mana. I think it needs to, instead of this minion can't be targeted by card effects, I think this card cannot be destroyed or banished by your opponent's card effects. Like this resurge and swoop are so important right now because there's so much. It's so easy to just summon a mask, put them in your base for a turn. Next turn, swing face, get a free 9-drop, and then swing face for game, and then use your control spells you have in hand to finish the game off. That's just so easy right now, and that's kind of unacceptable. So that's a big problem, and that's why I'm not playing him right now, is because he's just too easy to remove. You invest a lot to try to get him on the field, and then he's just going to get removed. And there's just no way of making them undestructible. Like, they all just can't be targeted, which is great, but it doesn't really do anything when they're just going to put an 8-drop on the field that's going to literally just destroy every minion on your field, like all your good minions. And there's no way of getting them back because there's no reviving in this deck. There's no way of adding them back. They're just gone forever. I genuinely think this card is the best card in this deck. I'm going to try to max it out at 3 and give that a shot because I think this is the card that you need to win. I think you really need to heavily lean on him. That's the state of white right now. It's just not consistent. It has no way of, bringing repeating cards. Its draw power is very mediocre. Unfortunately, you on paper it's really good, but in practice the draw power is just not there. It's not that good. Cards don't replace themselves like they do in other decks. For now, I guess we just hail the king of blue mask as our king from this point forward because it kind of has everything. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. More videos to come. I apologize for the delay, and I'll see you in the next one.